Welcome to The Amateur. Today we're going to talk a little bit about tone. It's occurring to me that I haven't really discussed my childhood piano teacher very much on this channel, which is weird because she was a legend. Sammy Booth, El Paso, Texas. She passed away a few years ago, and I tried looking her up on the internet just to find some photographs or really any artifacts of what was ultimately a legendary career. Multiple generations of students, many followers of this channel will be familiar with her because we grew up together. But the reason why I bring her up for this episode is because I feel like the topic of tone was central to her teaching method. Obviously, she was concerned with accuracy and musicality and all of this good stuff, getting things up to tempo, but tone was her primary concern. If you couldn't execute something with beautiful tone, you needed to take a step back. I remember, actually, the first piano lesson that I had with Mrs. Booth. She used the John Thompson method, which many people my age and older will certainly remember. It's the one with the little cartoon elves. And the first lesson was just 4 whole notes. Middle C, first played with the thumb of the right hand, then the thumb of the left, alternating back and forth. But before we even were allowed to put our hands to the keyboard, she made it very clear that the piano, the machine that is the piano, was merely an extension of our fingertips. The energy that you put in to the fingertips sounds obvious, but it was an important lesson for us to hear. The energy that you put in to the keys of the piano is what determines the quality of the sound when the hammer ultimately strikes the string. She brought that up from the very first day, making sure that we recognized that the sound that emerges from the piano comes from our brains, and that there's a line that connects our brains to our shoulders, and then to our elbows, and then to the wrists, and then to what were hopefully curved fingers. Which is a real stickler on curved fingers. And while the topic of tone was introduced early on in her program, I'm sure she also knew that for most of us it was just going over our heads. You know, when children approach a piano, generally speaking, they want to bang it. And they have to unlearn that impulse and also recognize that the key of a piano is very different than a button that gets pushed. The instrument is designed to be sensitive and to transmit the same kind of energy that again comes from the brain all the way down to the fingertips. I think that the concept of tone only really materialized in my brain when I was learning that piece that you heard in the intro, which is the Khachaturian Piano Concerto, which I was learning as a teenager, probably 15, 16 years old. And there's something about that excerpt, that solo excerpt, that where it finally clicked, especially that gesture at the end. That's when I began to understand how important tone was and the difference that it makes between what is an average performance and an exceptional performance. So the piece that I wanted to share with you on the subject of tone is one that I came across very recently. It's attributed to the Italian composer Domenico Scarlatti. However, before recording it, I did some research on it and discovered that that attribution is very much in question. They don't actually think that Scarlatti wrote it, academics being they, but they don't know who did. So let's just say that it's Scarlatti, but I wanted to play it because I thought it was a great example of a piece that allows the performer to really focus on the execution of beautiful tone, almost with every note. It's just crystal clear and probably written in the late 1740s, around the time of Bach's death, actually, where the Baroque period was starting to seed into the classical period. So I hope you enjoy it. I love it, and wanted to share it with you. So, Ekul, it's been a while. What have you been doing here alone in the dark? Did you miss me? Oh yeah, I missed you too.